I'm sorry, but if anybody wants or advocates for locked-in spots after what we've just seen, I want to meet them, because this was one of the most dramatic qualifying days ever at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We had action from 11 o'clock all the way up until the 5:50 gun. Ben Hanley and Pippa Man made it. Alonso and Hinchcliffe didn't. So just from that perspective right there, wow, what a day. I mean, I can't even believe. I just want to immediately say, Dragon Speed Racing, what a performance. I mean, how they have just been flawless, to be honest with you, this entire month. And I don't think they've gotten enough credit. They haven't gotten enough coverage in the media. Marshall Pruitt reported that half of their team was left at customs. They weren't allowed into the country. So they've been operating on a shoestring budget with a shoestring team, and yet they're qualifying at 227 miles an hour, and a double world champion is going to have to qualify tomorrow. I can't even believe it. Pippa Man, the two drivers that everybody wrote off, driving for a USAC team that's never even seen an IndyCar before this, in terms of actually building one, makes it in. Graham Rahal, I thought he was going to Jay Howard himself there by pulling his time out. Turns out he runs, the 15th fastest time of the day. We saw Spencer Pigot. That might end up being the pole position qualifying run. Third out of the box, over 230 miles an hour. Depending on the weather tomorrow, it could rain out the Fast 9. If they end up doing or if they can't get the last row thing in, they actually are going to push that to Monday or Tuesday. And I had even heard, I think it was from Kevin Lee, that they might end up doing the last row thing as late as Wednesday. But if it goes any further than that, if it rains for 4 or 5 days in a row, whatever were the times today will end up being the times for good, locked in. Carlin Racing, wow, what a disaster for them. 3 of their 4 cars not in, counting the McLaren with Fernando Alonso. I guess I'll talk about Carlin first, because we'll talk about Alonso here in a second. We had Pato O'Ward with a pretty safe speed at 227.1. He was in the show. They withdrew his time. He went out and ran 226.8. Lowered the bubble speed, which allowed Ben Hanley to get back in the show. Then Max Chilton went out, also ran slower. In fact, when O'Ward jumped out of the field, it promoted for just like a split second Max back into the field. But then Max left, and Max got knocked out because he withdrew his time. Disaster for Carlin Racing. It couldn't have gone any worse for them. It's as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the worst, one of the biggest blunders I've ever seen in qualifying ever here. It was really mismanaged. Speaking of mismanagement, or not necessarily mismanagement, but boy, it's so crazy to see Hinchcliffe Racing, who didn't make the show today. They'll have to go into the last row shootout tomorrow. But man, what a hell of an effort. They got a car turned around in 12 hours, and it took McLaren, with Fernando Alonso, 2 days to do the same task. I don't know what the deal with Alonso is. He's completely snake-bitten. He probably would have qualified easily this morning, probably at over 228 miles an hour, but he had a flat tire during the run, and it really killed his time. He made 4 other attempts, so 5 attempts in total, and the last one looked like it was going to get in, but then J.R. Hildebrand bumped him out of the field. Wow. So Fernando Alonso, double world champion, the guy who's kind of the main draw of this entire race, the guy that everybody seems to be caring about, right now isn't in. Unbelievable. By the way, James Hinchcliffe is having another bad year. Right now, he's out of the race, out of the field. The IU medical helicopter is flying over us. Thanks for that, folks. But I couldn't believe it. I was crushed for Hinchcliffe when he hit the wall. Unbelievable effort and preparation from the Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports team to get him back out there in a backup car. Unfortunately, it's a road course car, so it's slow. If I were a betting man, I would put some money on Hinchcliffe actually making the field tomorrow. But boy, I don't want to necessarily make this joke, but boy, at one point I thought the Arrow slogan is 5 years out, and I was wondering if Arrow 5 years out means Hinch isn't going to be in the race for 5 years. It's going to take him 5 years to get back into this thing, because it seems like everything that could go wrong with Hinchcliffe at Indianapolis has gone wrong. Speaking of which, that crash was very similar to all the other ones we've seen. Again, we saw a car getting airborne. I don't know what is going on at this point. I don't know what could change, what they can do to stop that if they want to stop it. It's a frightening situation with that. I will leave you with this. a review of this format. There was a lot of talk about this format. I thought it was fantastic. It definitely was a little bit slow in the middle part. I'm still not a big fan of the 2 lanes because it ultimately becomes unnecessary when you've got a bumping process going on. You don't need a second lane in there where people can just, kind of get a freebie run. They don't need that. But locking in the top 30, actually, even though it's non-traditional, it added a element to this that it meant that more cars were affected and really had to think about their qualifying attempts and getting into the field than have in years past. And it actually felt a lot more today like a classic bump day, and then we get to do this all tomorrow, weather permitting. There is a chance of heavy thunderstorms right about the time qualifying is going to go off, so we don't know what's going to happen. And that's the beauty of Indianapolis. That is why this qualifying is so special. That's why this race is so special, and I hope they never, ever change this. Roger Penske, Chip Ganassi, Robin Miller, you guys are wrong. And I'm going to keep saying that because this is what makes this race the greatest race in the world. And I hope that it will continue this way for many years to come. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be back with more coverage tomorrow. This has been David Land on YouTube. Subscribe for more Indy 500 month content. And I will see you in the next video as I tip my Kamoa cap for hopefully some good luck for Fred tomorrow.